Appreciate you joining, and hope to see you in person in one of our meetings someday. I know it's quite a drive.
We'll try to do that one day.
Let's see. I see some other faces. iPhone. It doesn't say your name.
Joan Trundle.
I'm sorry.
Joan Trundle.
What, guys? Colson's here.
Hey, Golson. Well, thank you for calling in. Let's see if I see. All right. I think I know everyone else.
We have Craig Neiman from Chapter 42.
Where? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that when I was scanning very quickly. Well, welcome all, and I've lost count of what Zoom meeting this is, but as you can see, with Bob and Mary's assistance, we're getting pretty good at this. I'd still like to meet in person, and of course, every meeting I bring this up, and so we can go ahead and get it out of the way real quick if you'd like. We've got an in-person meeting scheduled for April. Personally, I would like to do it to see what how many members we can get. I think that we, of course, would have to have a mandatory mask, and I think the place is big enough that we can socially distance. I'd like to see a show of hands of who would attend if we do have an April meeting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How many people have already had their second vaccination?
I have.
I have.
I'm getting mine next week.
We both had our first ones and we receive our second later this month.
I'm not concerned about having a real meeting as long as the attendees, just because of our age bracket, have already completed their second vaccination at least 2 weeks before the meeting. If we've all had that, then we're all safe, because we don't need to kill off some of our membership.
Well, I agree, and that's been the reluctance, is to put anyone at risk at all. But I think, we're all adults. It's we can make our own decision as to whether we want to attend or not. But I think that we need to have some parameters, and that is social distance and mask at the very least.
My concern on that is if we have, say, an 80-year-old member who thinks this is all BS and refuses to mask in his regular life, refuses to get vaccinated, and comes to the meeting, that's the problem. And we're all adults, but the adults aren't doing their job throughout the country. We wouldn't have a problem if there were adults in the country.
Well, it's open to debate. So, and I don't think we have enough time to debate all of that. But I think, we have a mandatory mask requirement. If you wear the mask, fine. If you don't, we will ask you to leave. I think that, for one thing is that I think that we've got members that are losing interest in the club. If they can't come, if they don't, if they're not going to Zoom, otherwise they'd be here. So I'm going to call for a face-to-face meeting in April. If we'll see what kind of attendance we have. If it's not enough, then we go back to Zoom. What say you?
I'd like to suggest that you do a simulcast in Zoom also. The 7-hour commute for me is a bit of a problem.
I couldn't hear you, Pete.
Say the 7-hour commute for me is a bit of a problem, and simulcast in Zoom would be good.
Well, and we looked into that. The Wi-Fi is spotty at the Aqua Center. They suggested a mobile hotspot, which I don't know what that means. To me, that's when my car overheats.
I'll bet you Randy could come up with a mobile hotspot.
Randy?
I know what one is. I have used one. You use your cell phone to transfer data is what it comes down to. I haven't done it on my current phone, and I haven't done it in 3 phones. It takes data. That's about the only problem with it.
And if you,
My data plan is pretty low.
We could probably pay for your data.
Dan, if you recall, Donald Jackson tried to do that when he did his animations video. He tried to get those over the internet and failed. So I'm not saying that the next guy would, but I think he's pretty competent with technology.
Yeah, did he try a mobile hotspot?
Yes, he did.
He did. All right.
I was going to say another option is that the cell providers actually sell an internet type device, a wireless internet device, but I haven't tried to carry one of those around to different locations. Typically, it's intended to give you internet service at your house.
They also have cell phone boosters, which
They
I
have
worked. I worked in those companies, but I don't know that I have one that would work with my current phone.
Yeah, the cell phone booster requires that you plug it into the into a hardwired network, does it not?
No, it's just it's a bidirectional RF amplifier.
Okay.
So you take an antenna, stick it where you can get signal, run a wire to this device, and it spews it out in a small area.
Okay.
It's a nice little option, but I don't have one on me.
Is there any way to test it?
Yeah, I have unlimited data on my cell phone, and I've got 5G. I've not used it if I have good, strong signal at the aquatic center, it would probably work.
But you won't know till you're there.
Until I'm there, I can't test it unless I'm there.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
About the meetings in April, I personally would feel a little more comfortable by June after a lot of people are going to be vaccinated by May. And I just feel a little more comfortable coming to a in-person meeting, maybe starting in June, but I don't know about April. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, let's throw that out. Would everyone feel more comfortable in June?
If they make the progress that they're projecting, if they don't, it's hard to say. We still have to rely on people going to get shots, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, I keep up with the data. I'm kind of a data person. And when you deal with exponential growth, it's kind of hard to really visualize. So what I do is I look at how long it takes to double. And right now it's the date to double is 370 days off, somewhere in like early November 2024, which to give you an idea, about 3 months ago, it was somewhere in the 2023s, and 2 or 3 months before that, it was like 6 months. So we're getting better. I mean, yes, if you look at how many cases per day, that really hasn't changed, but the total number of cases that have happened as a percentage of that has actually gone down considerably.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that we wait until all possible scenarios have been played, we'll never get back together.
But
So-
Sherry and Glenn would feel more comfortable with June too, but we think that would be fine in June. We agree with George.
Well,
If we held a meeting in April, Dan, we would just be shortly after our second injection, because Sherry got hers on the 25th of February. I got mine on the 28th. So just call it the 1st of March. So at the end of March, we get a vaccine, our second vaccination, or the Pfizer vaccine, and an April meeting would be a little bit too soon to have
Push it
developed
a
about a month's worth of
For us.
immunity.
No, we're talking about the second week in April. Is that right, Dan?
yeah, I think, I don't have my calendar here.
Because I believe the first week is Easter.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the week after Easter.
Mhm.
Well, it's still within, it's still within less than a month after we've had our second vaccination. It's all I'll offer up, but I would personally feel a lot better, a lot easier, a lot less antsy about an in-person meeting in June. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Still giving any guidance to chapters?
No,
None?
not that I've seen, you know. Renee, have you seen anything from
I have
National?
not. No, I have not.
Yeah,
Well, Dan, this month, all the teachers in Gwinnett are being vaccinated by the end of, they're saying by the end of, about the middle of April, they'll have all the teachers and their families. So that's where they're shooting for. They're saying it's pretty risky right now. So I kind of agree with George and them. I think April is a little pushing it. We're trying to get all these, I think with the teachers and their families, that's a huge number in Gwinnett. To me, it's going to give us, as the kid said, May to get ready, and then June, the summertime. I think you may have the parks reopen. I think June is a good place to look at and give us time to plan for it.
show of hands for June.
All right, let's go for June.
Too far to
Yeah,
go.
looks like just about everyone. So, all right, well, y'all beat me down. We'll go in June.
We'd like to keep you with us, Dan.
Yeah, I'd like to stay around for a little while longer at least. Finish
I'm
out
not
this
ready- I'm not
term.
ready to pack my bags just yet.
Okay, then I'll get in touch with Ann Jackson at Gwinnett and get a refund for April, and we'll set June for the next for the face-to-face meeting, unless something happens. If we get a huge outbreak from spring break or wherever it comes from, we can always.
Dan, see if you can get the governor to give Mary some shot, and all our members who haven't got it, we can just shoot them that day. That'd be good.
That's right. Well,
Dan, I was telling Sherry, kids, isn't it funny? Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
amen.
Amen.
I want to go to Alaska, but I'm gonna wait till they build roads. So, all right, well, that one's settled. We'll aim for June. Let's see, we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. I have to hear a motion.
Say we dispense with the minutes.
There you go. Mary, you raised your hand as a second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Steve, I'll tell you that we seldom get any objections to any motions, even though we still consider this a democratic forum. All right, so I've got some new business here. I just wanted to mention, I don't know if this, I never know if these emails that National sends goes to everyone or if it just goes to the presidents. Did anyone else get the email from National about Roy McElroy, the new executive director?
That the
Yeah,
guy
I did.
Greenwich?
I got it.
Okay, so it went to everyone?
Yeah.
I don't get messages from National.
It's okay to use the email.
Do I?
There's in the NAWCC that do not give their email for NAWCC to use. So maybe if you're not on their email list, you're not aware of it.
Right, yeah.
They've
Well-
had my email for years and it's been repeated over and over and they still don't send me messages.
They don't like you, Pete.
Right. And by the way, Pete, in June, when we meet in person, as you're coming up to our meeting, how about stopping by Dawson and picking up Steve? And, because Steve lives down close to the Florida line.
I should probably swing over to Alabama too while I'm at it.
Yeah, pick up Donna. So, all right, so Kevin Osborne, I don't know him. I don't think I ever met him. He's retiring.
No,
Y'all didn't get that email?
no, I didn't.
Okay, well, Kevin is retiring March 25th, I think is his last day. Sarah Gallagher asked that we send a retirement card, so I've sent one from our club. And they'll be presented to him on March 25th when they have his retirement party. For those of you who know him, I've never met him. George, do you know him?
Dan, it's Donna. Kevin was the IT guy. He kind of handled all the stuff in the background up there and has been there for years.
Oh, okay.
I've talked to him a number of times whenever I had trouble with getting on the NAWCC website, and he's always been very helpful.
I didn't know if he came to the national conventions and stuff, so.
They don't usually have the back rooms come unless it's
Yeah.
in work.
Okay, well, he's retiring and like I say, I sent a card on behalf of the club, so. The voting for directors. I've got the deadline for that is March 15th. Is that correct?
Oh, it's in April.
Is it in April?
I thought it was, but I mean, I'd have to go back and check it. I'd have to go back and find the evidence to support that statement, but I thought it was April. And I don't know
Well,
what
I believe someone sitting beside you is running.
Uh,
I don't know.
She's
the
running
answer to
from
that
the law.
question.
Well, I've already gotten my ballot. I've already voted and returned it. So I wanted to urge everyone to vote. We've got Renee and Sherry running for directorships.
Thelma and Louise.
Do I?
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, that's right. I'd urge you to vote. It'd be nice to have two directors from our club.
Yeah.
Dynamic duo.
Welcome. You've got mail.
Who's got mail?
Oh, that was me.
Charles. Charles is the only person I know that still has AOL.
That means I've had this thing a long time.
I know a lot of people. that have
Years
that.
than most people.
More power to you. Yes.
One of the, I thought a little bit confusing about National's message about voting. It says about taking a survey, and I'm sure some people are going to think, I don't want to take a survey.
Yeah.
And it's actually the voting, and it's too bad it's misleading.
Yeah, they're using that, what is it, monkey survey?
Yeah.
as the voting
Yeah.
mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, George. Yeah, most people probably want, because when I get surveys from companies and stuff, I don't take them.
Right.
Well, if you do, please understand that that's your ballot, and open it up and vote for Sherry and Renee.
And Philip Morris.
Well, I don't smoke anymore, so.
No, no, Philip is over here. He's already on the board, but he's running again.
Oh, okay.
Also, the chairman of the,
Well, I don't know if I got it or not.
No,
or
no, you're
Move the screen.
All right.
Dan?
Yes.
And since we've been joining together with other chapters, et cetera, what about putting out the word to them that we've got 2 members that are running and ask them to disseminate that to their membership and also straighten out the survey, situation. In other words, campaign a little bit for them with these other clubs.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Everyone who the National has an email for has gotten a survey, so we just need to let them know that the survey is actual ballot. I think I'll get with National and speak to them about it, because I hadn't thought about that being confusing, but you're right. I wouldn't ordinarily think that the survey would be the ballot. But if you read it, it says it is. But most people aren't going to read that, I would think. So, all right, good suggestion. I'll get with National on that part. So, make a note to myself. Okay. I had mentioned at the last meeting about Steve Highsmith's clocks, and I sent some pictures to some folks who emailed me and wanted them. Steve, did anyone ever get in touch with you on them?
Not at this point, Dan, but I certainly appreciate you getting that word out for me.
Well, I didn't mind at all. And if somebody, if anyone wants to see some pictures of them, they're not real good pictures because I'm not a photographer, but I can forward those pictures to you. And you can get in touch with Steve and see what. Now you have to go to Dawson.
Great. It's a great trip. Y'all come.
Yeah, it's not Dawsonville, which is only 20 miles up the road here. It's Dawson, which is 3 hours south of me. So, but Mary and I went there. My Mary and I went there, and I picked up a couple clocks, and we had made a good day of it. So it was interesting. Let's see.
$5 clocks in Dawson?
I'm sorry, what?
I said you found $5 clocks in Dawson?
No, it wasn't $5, but they were nice. It was a nice clock.
But he got a really good deal, so that's good. And my goal too is to get these clocks into the hands of people who appreciate clocks. And so, anything I can do to get photos to you too, I'd be glad to do that.
Well, yeah, the clock I got from, I've been working on this 1810 grandfather clock, and the works that he had with no case are similar to the works that came with the clock, and except his is in great shape. The one I have is in terrible shape, so I've got to take parts. Unfortunately, I was hoping just to be able to replace the entire works, but I can't. It won't. They don't all match up. So anyway, that's one of my projects for later, I guess. So. All right. anyone have any other new business? Randy, have we heard anything from the schools on Tuesday night?
I talked with her last week. They have their meeting in about the middle of the month. And she's heard the county school is not allowed any of the community schools to meet. So we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
And I keep pestering her and she says to please keep pestering her, but she doesn't have any news. So the next time is a couple weeks from now. This is their next meeting.
Well, you know, and I got an email from National day before yesterday of a number of new people who joined National, and quite a few of them are in Georgia. And so I want to I want to send them a personal invitation to join the chapter, but also I want to be able to talk about the Tuesday night group. And so I don't want to do all that and then say, oh, but we're not meeting. So I'm hoping that we can get that taken care of soon and get some folks, let them know about it.
And I think it would be just fine to go ahead and contact those new folks now and simply say, we have the Tuesday night group that whose meetings are delayed for whatever you want to say, but go ahead and contact them and just be clear that we aren't meeting in person, but will be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to contact them, you know, now, just to let them know that we're thinking about them. And hopefully soon we'll be able to meet. And then I can notify them again when we decide that we can meet again. All right. Charles? Oh, there you are. You have the treasurer's report?
I do. Warren, you have a feedback cycle there.
Sorry. I thought I'd done that, Lordy.
Thank you, experiment.
We ready?
We're ready.
All right, this is the March Treasury report. We have $16,473.11 in the checking account and $50 cash for a total of $16,523.11. We did receive a good many dues. We got $160 in dues for the past month, or maybe it's 2 months. Got a credit from Gwinnett County of $220.17, which I just put it on the report because we don't really have it because we hadn't utilized it yet.
Yeah.
We have a meetup subscription for our expenses of $98.94. That is something that I'm not sure what that's for, to you, truth of the matter.
Well, oh, the meetup, that's a website that Randy belongs to that advertises our club.
Okay. I didn't know I like that, but I didn't know. We ever got anybody out of that?
Yeah.
We've gotten a few, yeah.
We have? Well, that's good. We paid $200 a year for it, so I just wanted to make sure we were getting something out of it.
We were getting more and more interest in it, and then COVID hit. So it's kind of an unfair test. And I'm afraid if we cancel it, then everybody who had interest is going to fall away. And if we start it back up again, they won't come back.
I agree. I think that, you know, COVID has thrown a monkey wrench into a whole lot of things. And I'm happy that we're still managing to get new members. And I think that as the COVID thaws and we can start meeting in person, that we'll resume meetings. We had a pretty good run there before COVID of new members. So all we can do is keep pushing.
The Atlanta chapter is quite unusual. In Florida, just about all the chapters are closing.
Really? They're all closing hard, huh?
Well, when you get down to 5 members, it's kind of tenuous.
That's true. Well, I've no,
I didn't hear a thing you said.
if you read the book we get from the National every week, you know, it shows chapter highlights and so forth. Not well, we get it monthly, I think, and you know, the larger chapters in the country that I see, member wise.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But well, that's one good thing. And here, I never did finish. So we ended up with 16,534.17 in the checkbook and 16,584.17 with the $50 we keep on hand for our 50/50, which we haven't done in quite a while. But maybe we'll get it to it in when we're going to open June.
Oh, in June.
I was reading on the internet about. I got a March 15th is when the state they've still got some kind of ban on meetings, but it's less than 50 people, which we usually fall under.
Yeah. Mr. Kitts, I see your hand.
May I interject? I just found on my email, I had to go to my email, and since we're on our downstairs desktop, I had to get to Sherry's laptop so I could get to my email because I couldn't figure out how to get back to my email and stay on Zoom. But voting ends on April the 1st. That's April Fool's Day at midnight on April 1st.
Okay, April 1st.
And there is no mail ballots offered this year. It's all online.
Yeah, that's the way I don't know how you got a mail-in ballot.
Do the Democrats know about that?
Good point.
Well, I urge everyone to vote. You know, like I say, it'd be great to have 2 directors from our club, and I'm sure they'll do a good job. All right. Well, thank you, Charles.
I got one other thing. We still have about 15 members that hasn't, you know, that we lost since 2019. That was the last time they had paid dues. So they didn't get moved to 2021 or 2020, either one. They got moved from 19 to 2020, which means they haven't paid their dues yet. So we got about 15 people still that haven't done that. And I'm going to write them a letter or an email, one or the two or both, and see what's going on. You know, well, the way we usually figure out we haven't paid our dues is when you get your name tag on. When we have a meeting, it has a date on it, and if that date is not current, then you're behind on your dues. So we're not at. So I'm sure people are not aware of what's, you know, maybe paid.
Yeah, and I think the bylaws say if you haven't paid by June, then you're kicked out of the club. So if we meet in June, we may be able to collect some of those.
Maybe so.
Yeah, if not, then I think it's time to send them the letter. But so we can if you want to go ahead and send them a letter, I would suggest that and let them know what the bylaws are.
Yeah, well, I'll send them the friendly letter that, you know, you haven't paid your dues yet, and just to remind they are due.
All right.
And then, like you said, in June, you send the one where they're going to be taken off the roll and that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and then if they decide to come back, they got to pay the back dues also.
Yeah.
Good luck on collecting all that, though.
Hey, we've done better than I thought. I would, you know, the way things are now, it was, you know, we lost that 15th, a lot of members to lose though.
Yeah. But we're gaining, we're picking up some. So, you know, I got my fingers crossed that we come out on the top. You know, we'll come out with a net plus. So.
Good.
All right, let's see. Next up, George, you got any groaners today?
Yeah, I got a couple of bad groaners or good groaners, whatever you want to call them. So the first one was, what time do ducks wake up? And the answer is at the quack of dawn.
That is bad.
Even I saw that one coming.
Yeah. And then I found one that the Colson sent me a long time ago that I haven't found, that I just found recently. Why should you never believe a clock? And the answer is because it's usually secondhand information.
Jackie, does he,
Mr. Colson.
Jackie, does he test these out on you first?
No, I wouldn't dare. Hey, listen, while I'm on the line, I did pursue, I talked to the people at the Atlanta History Center about the governor's mansion stuff, and they referred me to a fellow named Lamar Jackson, and I left him a long voicemail. I haven't heard back from him yet, so I'll wait a little while and then try and get the guy again. But I left him basically the information that we had talked about at the last meeting. The other thing, Dave,
Lamar Jackson, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's the name that was on his voicemail. So the only other thing I was going to mention was that when we were talking about Alaska at the beginning of the meeting, and I was going to ask you, Dan, why, when you're walking in California, why do you didn't just go on up and walk up to Alaska?
Well, I've thought about it. I'm 68 miles south of Eugene, Oregon. And so as I continue my trek, I've kicked it around whether I keep heading up the coast or turn around, fly home and go somewhere else.
Oh, his problem is he can't walk to Juneau.
That's right. And that water's too cold to swim, so.
Well, people may not, if they weren't at Tuesday night class, they may not know what we're talking about, but.
That's right. Well, I walk every day, and I have a map of the United States, and I have walked a virtual walk from Montreal, Canada to Key West, and from Atlanta to San Diego, and now I'm heading up the coast, and I'm in Oregon now. So 5,165 miles. So
How long did it take you to do that?
since June of 2015. I used to walk like 4 miles a day, but I've got that, Mary helped me with this, that plantar something in my foot.
Plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, that's it. I can never say it right. So it's pretty painful to walk. So I only walk 2 miles a day. And much to my Mary's chagrin, you know, she just, when I complain about my foot hurting, she just shakes her head and walks away. Because she says, you know, if you stop walking for a while and let it heal. But I set a goal of walking 365 days without a break, without missing a day, and I'm at 233, so I've still got a ways to go. You know, you gotta set goals for yourself. If not, then you just become a fat old bald guy that joins the clock club. So I have to set goals. Speaking, I meant to mention this though with the Treasury report. We got a thank you letter from National for the $250 donation. I don't think, unless you got it, Charles, a letter from Columbia.
I did. I thought I sent it to you, but I did, or did I send you that one?
No, I got this in the mail. This was addressed
Okay.
to me, but I don't need it. I was just wondering if we
We
got
do.
acknowledgement from it.
We did get them. We did get one. I thought I'd seen it to you, and I don't know what I done with it right this second, but
That's fine. I just, I hate for us to donate our money to groups that don't at least thank us. So I'm glad they did. Okay.
oh, sorry. Hold on. Go ahead, and I'll get back.
Yes, Mary?
Can we ask if Donna has any information about the regional?
Sure you can, since you already have.
Okay, Donna, I've asked.
You're muted, Donna.
We can't hear you, Donna.
I thought I unmuted. I guess I didn't push the button. Excuse me. Anyway, as far as the regional goes, we are going to plan it currently as we're going to go forward. So I'm getting the paperwork ready for the registration form to be in the next set of publications, which will be the June timeframe, which is when they normally come out. And we don't have contracts with the hotel and the convention center, but we've been in touch with them. And with the convention center, we have first right of refusal on the date. And the reason we haven't actually signed contracts is we're a little nervous that we could end up having penalties where last year everything got shut down mandatorily and no penalties were incurred because it was just a nationwide thing. So we're kind of going a little slower, but being in contact with them and of course not having a whole bunch of other people trying to use the same dates, we're assured that we're going to be fine. The one thing we have to confirm is the hotel rates. As far as will they continue to honor those hotel rates, and I should have that confirmation so that I have that to be able to be published when we put the registration into the mart. But currently, we're acting like it's going forward. We kind of feel that by September, as we've been saying, most everybody, especially in our group, will have had their shots, and those who haven't had the shot are probably going to be less worried about it because everybody else will have. So, the younger people may not have gotten it, but they're going to be less likely to get bad sick. So, we're going to go forward, and if there's an outbreak over the summer that nobody foresees, and they cancel us, we won't have control over that. But that's where we are right now. We're going to move forward. So everybody who has thought of or has done a chairperson thing that could help us out and you're willing to do it, keep it in the back of your brain. We're moving forward. And so if you've worked the mart or worked security or, worked publications or, worked any of the areas, registration, so forth, keep in mind that we're going to need all help that can come our way.
Okay. Well, we'll put out a call for volunteers at the June meeting too.
Yeah.
To press that home. So.
What are the dates of the meeting, please?
It's Labor Day weekend. The actual dates, I want to say, give me a second and I'll tell you. It is Labor Day weekend. It starts on the 3rd and ends on the 5th. So it's the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
First weekend in.
It's always Labor Day weekend, you know, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday going into Labor Day. And so that way you always know. And we already have the date held for us for the chapter. If we get to hold ours, then it goes to the next chapter for next year. I already talked to the guy at National that keeps these dates for everybody so that we don't have conflicts. And he called me because another chapter wanted around that date and asked if we were going to keep the Labor Day weekend. And I said, yes. So for 2022, we already have that date saved for our Mid-South because we always get that weekend, which is a good thing.
And didn't the national vote that it's okay to let non-members into the mart?
Yeah.
Yes, we did that.
I just wanted to make sure my memory was correct. So great. Maybe we can drum up more
voted
interest.
on a couple years ago to where we could have the people in. So we did that. The last regional, I think, was the first time we did that, or maybe it was the second time we did it.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you know,
The last regional was the second time we did it.
otherwise you're just selling to all of us who have more clocks and stuff than our same person should have.
Yeah.
It was very beneficial for our vendors at the show, at the mart. One guy up in Sweetwater, Dan Robbins, did $2,500 worth of business from one of those individuals. And another one of our vendors, I can't remember his name, did about $1,000 to $1,500 with somebody from not within our ranks. So I think it's very beneficial.
I agree.
To the vendors, but to everyone else.
Yeah.
Well, and hopefully the vendors will, you know, they'll talk amongst themselves and we'll get more vendors. And hope, you know, hope springs eternal, and we'll get more people interested, and it gives us an opportunity to sell the club. So I think it's a win-win for everyone. So great. Okay. Any other questions before we go to the program? Mary, I'll open it up for you to introduce.
Okay, well, I'm very pleased that we have Geoff Parker presenting this morning, and he was kind enough to send a bio, so pardon me if I read. Dr. Geoff Parker has a PhD in computer science and many certifications, including GIAC Gold, which is a cybersecurity. I had to look it up. He's also published many papers. He's now completing a second master's degree in information security management and engineering. So I think that makes him officially an overachiever.
Yeah.
Geoff has been a fan of watches and a collector since his teen years. In 2010, he started studying watchmaking, took courses, and joined the NAWCC. He is skilled in appraising watches and identifying real versus fake watches, as well as having been trained and certified under Adam Harris. He is a passionate and enthusiastic collector with over 400 pieces in his collection, as well as over 100 pocket watches. Having learned that he is a relation to J. Ullman, the watchmaker from Switzerland, he has sought out as many of those pocket watches as he can afford, and now has about a dozen in his collection, though some of those are project watches. Geoff was a member and past director of the Suncoast Chapter number 60, a director and treasurer in the San Jacinto Chapter 139 in Houston for 6 years, and currently is a member of Chapters 124 in Dallas, 42 in Knoxville, and most recently he has joined Chapter 24 as well. So I am very pleased to have Geoff speaking to us today on his watches, specifically watch backs and the tools to open them.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate the warm welcome and the introduction. Bob, can you make sure that I am able to share screen and present? I have a slideshow I'd like to share with everybody. And the answer is I can do it. Awesome. Can everybody see the slide that's on the screen now?
Yep. Yes.
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you can hear me. Okay, I'm Geoff. Please don't call me doctor or anything. It makes me feel older. Just Geoff is fine. Sean Clark is my partner in crime. I call him an enabler. He has recently relocated about a year ago to Brisbane, Australia in Queensland. And I miss him dearly because he was a great friend and mentor, as well as an enabler who probably spent half my fortune for me on convincing me to buy watches I didn't need. We did a presentation several years ago at our regional in Houston, and this presentation is a combination of both. Now, you may actually have bumped into Sean because a few years ago, I think it was at the regional in Pennsylvania after Louisville, one of the watches that he did was an Omega pocket watch, which he had restored following its immersion in Hurricane Harvey. And he actually won first prize for that restoration. That was actually a labor of love I helped him with, particularly in sourcing non-existent parts and fabricating and calming him down when he broke things. And he presented that back to the owners and never charged them for it. But you may have actually seen that watch. It was quite the labor of love. So today we're going to talk about watch case backs and how to open them. And a lot of people believe that there are only two different kinds: snap fittings, those that are closed by pressure, and screw type that are opened with something called a JAXA tool. This, I don't think you can see my camera right now, but I've actually got two tables in front of me, which I'm going to show you at the end of our presentation. One of them is loaded with watch case tools and the other is loaded with watches. And every single one of these 18 watches has a different type of case back, and it requires a different tool to open. So there's not just two, there's a lot of them. So we covered the most common ones, but there's some manufacturers that decided they had to do it their own way, like Bulova, Breitling, Omega, Rolex, and some of the other brands that you see listed. In a moment, I'm going to show you a picture of some of those tools and how they work. Just a word of caution here for those of you enthusiasts that might be tempted to open a watch. Put away your hammers, they're not required. In fact, if you have to use force to open a watch back, stop, because something is wrong and you don't want to try it that way. You're going to need to figure out a better way to do it or a different way to go about it. There are a lot of ways that you can break a watch by trying to open it, or even for that matter, changing a crystal or trying to change a crystal. I've got a tool in front of me that's a giant pair of pliers, essentially, with felt covered plates. And they will squeeze a watch case together. It's kind of a handheld watch press. But if you do it wrong, you can smash a crystal. I've done that before with them by accident. You can dent or make concave instead of convex a watch case back. You can do a lot of damage. Remember that with all sorts of things, and everybody who's worked on a watch or a clock is probably familiar with this, when that level of frustration escalates, there's no harm in walking away, woozah, right? Take a deep breath, rethink the situation, or even better, get some help from someone. And I am not shy about that. I try to keep my ego out of my watchmaking. If I don't know how to do something, or if I can't figure out a way, or it's just not working, then it's far, far better to ask for help than it is to break something, because the breakage can often result in very, very costly repairs or total loss, and we don't want to do that. Now, if you've got very expensive watches like this Rolex I'll show you in a few minutes, you really don't want to practice on those, particularly if you don't know what's going on, because if you damage a $5,000 or $10,000 watch, that's going to leave a mark, especially when you didn't need to. So it's a good idea to practice on throwaways. And actually, one of the ways I got started in watchmaking, because I knew I didn't know anything, is I bought some really crappy cheap tools on eBay. At the time, I didn't know any better. And I bought a lot of watches, a lot meaning a box full of watches. And they were pretty much dead, I would say. They were what I call a rectangle. They were a rec and a tangle. So I actually managed, as I was learning how to work with these little teeny tiny, nearly microscopic sized pieces, to restore about a half a dozen of them and get them working again. And they look beautiful. And I realized from that, maybe I can do this. And that's actually part of what got me started in watchmaking. But the most important part of that is practice on something that has little or no value or significance. Do not practice on a prized heirloom or something with great sentimental value, because bad things can happen. And here my last bullet is, I like to refer to what doctors call the Hippocratic Oath. Mary can confirm this. Above all, do no harm. So if you can't fix something, don't make the problem worse. Although I'm sure of the 25 or so people in the meeting, no one's ever done that before. So of course, this doesn't apply to you. Now, I mentioned that there is more than one way to open a watchback. And on the screen right now, actually, I think nearly every single one, if not all of those pictures, I've got on the table in front of me, and I'm going to show you. But those big pliers that you see up on the left there, that's the case back closers that I was telling you about. What the manufacturer of this high quality tool doesn't tell you is that if the plate gets loose, there's a center post that screws it down, and the post sticks out. And if it sticks out more than about 2 millimeters, there goes the crystal. So I don't use this tool much anymore. I don't use it. I don't need it much anymore. But every once in a while, there's a watch that absolutely refuses to close. And I'm sure it's not warped or out of round or whatever it is. And it just needs a little bit of convincing. And if you use this tool carefully, I can convince it to close. Although that being said, the way I learned about that center post is I had I believe it was a Gucci 3400 that I gifted to my sister, which is a pretty expensive watch. I think it was about $1,000 when it was new. And I absolutely crushed it beyond all possible repair.
Oh dear.
So the bad news is she got a new watch. The good news is she got a new watch. But the more bad news is it was another watch in my collection, which I had to give her because all that thing needed was a battery replaced. Ooh, that one left a mark. Yeah. Okay. A lot of people do not realize that there are screws in some cases that hold on watchbacks. And they are almost 100%, well, let's say 90+%, slotted screws. They're flathead screws. And Baume & Mercier, I've got a very substantial amount of Baume & Mercier in my collection. I like them a lot for their quality and their originality. They use screws sometimes, but they also have a watch back that looks like a Rolex, but it's not the same coin count for those watchbacks. So you need different tools for Rolex and Baume & Mercier, and do not mix them up because one will not fit the other, despite the fact that they look almost identical to the casual appearance. Then, of course, we have the waterproof screw down case backs, lower left corner, and those are the ones that look like what you might see on a typical diver watch. And those use a tool called a JAXA, J-A-X-A. I've got several of them here to show you, and some El Cheapos you should never get or use. And those will open a waterproof watch. Hint, you really want something to secure the watch properly, either a Bergeon 7100 watch holder or something like the clamp you see in the lower right. Don't try and hold these in your palm and then use a big leverage type scratchy pin tool to open them, because bad things will happen, both to the back of the watch, which will probably get a living bejesus scratched out of it, whether you intend to or not, and you may actually puncture your palm, and you'll look very funny walking around with a wrench hanging off your palm, jammed in there by the 3 pins you were trying to use to open the back of that watch. So don't do that. It also hurts and can get infected. Okay, and then the last lower right-hand picture, you'll see a snap fitting. And that is your typical watch, which you would use a watch opening tool, in some cases, possibly a screwdriver, a knife, and in rare situations, a Swiss Army knife, a bladed knife, like a real flat blade knife, if you need something extraordinarily thin and special instructions to open. For example, there is actually a brand of watch. Wenger used to make them. They were Swiss Army watches. And I couldn't figure out how to get these stupid watch backs open for love nor money back in, I think it was 2015. Somebody asked me to repair them. So I got a hold of Wenger up in New York. And I said, how do I open the darn case back on this thing? I don't see anything that indicates that there's no manual and this does not want to open. And the guy said, take a screwdriver or a thin bladed knife and hit it with a hammer. Put it inside the groove and give it a good pat with a hammer and it should pop open. You may need to repeat this. Be careful. You don't want the blade to slip and hurt yourself or damage the watch back. And I'm like, you're telling me to hit a case back with a hammer and a knife? And he said, yes, that's the procedure. I'm like, okay, darned if it didn't work. I started telling all my friends. So that's an exception to using a hammer, but it was a very small jeweler's hammer. And I don't recommend it unless you know what you're doing. Bad things can happen. Now, on the top right, I said 90% of the time, the screws are slotted. Don't lose the screws. If you lose the screws or the case back to especially a Baume & Mercier case, you are going to have to send the watch back to Baume & Mercier and they will fabricate a new one based on the watch's serial number, and they will charge you for it dearly. You could easily be in 4 figures.
Ooh.
Okay, I actually had somebody send me a $3,000 watch who did not have a case back. It didn't have a case back or screws. I said, where's the case back and screws? The guy had set it out on a table when he was working on it, and his wife accidentally, not realizing what they were, threw them out in the trash. Okay. A lot of Asian watches, Casio, Citizen, El Cheapos that you don't know the brands of, will have the Phillips head screws in the back of the case. And that's the only time you're typically going to see those. So Champion, any off-brand, some Citizens, but never Seiko, for example. You will see Phillips head, and you need special Phillips head screwdrivers that are really good quality, that will not shred themselves or the head of the screw if you are going to tackle those. And usually there are 4 in the back of a watch case. There is one exception to that, which is Luminox. I think I have an example here. Yes, I do. I've got a Swiss Luminox watch. This uses real tritium tubes, so it's super bright at night, and they're very tough. They are a Swiss brand, and they actually use, you can't see it, but they actually use Phillips head screws. Okay, it's a rare, rare example. Why do I tell you this? For every rule, there's an exception, and you've got to be prepared for those exceptions. So I talked to you about certain tools, and these are some of the tools we use to open our watch backs. Okay, so again, there's snapback. In the top right and the lower left, those are both the JAXA tools. However, the one on the top right is much, much bigger. Why? Because watches are getting bigger. And if you try to open a 50+ millimeter watch with a really small JAXA, you're not going to be able to do it. The case back is literally too big. So there's times when you need different size tools that do the same job. In the lower right, you'll see a black tool, a Vigor, and that Vigor I actually bought at a regional or a national, and it's one of my 2 favorite tools for opening a watch case back that's JAXA type because it is so darn reliable. The quality is so high. That and a Burrell that's a V type that's about probably a good 6 to 8 inches long. You can get so much leverage on that. Nothing has been able to resist it. So that's one of my favorite tools. Now notice lower left also, you'll see a blue kind of rectangular flat looking thing with a dial in the middle. and you'll see a bronze colored one with an adjustable screw. Don't let me catch you buying or using those. They are made in India or China. They are 2 pins. They are not really adjustable. There's no way to tighten the screws other than by hand. And chances are good that they will do more harm than good. So if you have one of those, give them to somebody you don't like, but don't use them. Okay, they are doomed to failure and will create problems. Okay, moving on to caseback types and tools. There's a couple of different examples of caseback tool openers, and one of my favorite pairs are Dumas number 2s and the aforementioned hammer. Okay, there's also something that's a bench tool you see there in the lower picture, and that's really, really useful for opening snap fit watch cases, especially smaller ones, ladies ones, or ones that aren't really too tight, and ones that have a visible notch or indentation to keyway where you can fit something that's very thin. What's nice about this is you can literally either approach it from both sides with those heads, or you can put a buffer cushion on one side and use the screw type on the other, the blade. And it really doesn't do any damage, and it's so effective at popping off those snapback casebacks. Those are really, really, really good. Okay, so I like that, and they have 4 different sizes of heads that come with them, and they're really useful. They have screw cutouts in the base, so you can actually screw it down to a workbench if you want, like a lathe or another permanent fixture tool. Something that's really, really handy to have. You know, they're not very expensive. I think they're under $100, and unlike what almost everything else costs, which is very expensive. But they are really useful if you're going to be doing a lot of watch work, which I've still got probably, I don't know, I may be under 1,000 project watches at this point. Hopefully, I gave away about 7 cases of them to my last chapter before I left Houston, because I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to work on them, and so it was kind of a pay it forward thing. But I still got a lot of them, ones that I deemed worthy of working on that didn't need to be donated yet. So if you do a lot of this work, it may be worthwhile. You'd have to gauge it for yourself. I mean, there's tools out there that will absolutely superbly sharpen and shape the head of a blade on a screwdriver, but they're $400 tools. So other than the ooh, ah factor, unless you're going to use it, you'd have to decide if you really need another tool. My buddy Tim Glansman, who is the past president of Chapter 139, has a addiction to lathes. He denies it, but I think he's still pushing 50 lathes at this point. I mean, like, how many lathes can you use, right? Right. Said the pot calling the kettle black. So you don't want to buy these things unless you're really going to use them. You're better off saying, can I borrow yours if someone has them, or maybe donating it to a club and letting the club lend it out to members or something. But this gives you an idea of some of the different types of watch brands that use different proprietary casebacks and some of the tools to open them. Now, one other thing to be aware of is I've mentioned some high sort of luxury branded, Swiss branded names here, but it's not just them. There's French, there's English, there's American, there's Japanese, there's Malaysian, there's Chinese in multitudes of different flavors. So pretty much any nationality that makes a watch, which is most of them, in developed countries at least, there could be a variation on the theme for your watch back, and it's good to know about. More tools. That's the one I was telling you about, my V-type tool, the Burrell over on the top right. And on the left is a Mito crystal and movement tool, which I've got in front of me, and I'll show you in just a minute. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I have a blue ball and a green ball down there on the lower tray? And the reason I have them there is they are perfectly suitable tools for opening a watch back, including screw down watch backs. In many cases, it's a lot easier to start the watch in your holder using a tool and then finish it using a rubber ball. Okay, there's no particular rubber ball to get. Buy it wherever you can find kids' toys. Used to be Toys R Us had them really cheap. You can buy them for a few bucks on eBay. Why are they good? Because, and I bought a little inflator too, because they don't always stand up very well. They're sticky. They're made of rubber. And so if you put them against a case back, it'll put enough pressure on it to turn it, which is really good. And you get a couple of different sizes because watches come in different sizes. And I've got a little plastic inflator tool. So when you got to go, you know, to get them reinflated instead of keeping on buying $5 little watch back balls. And there's also vacuum tools, which you can apply to a watch back with suction, and it will help you remove the case from the watch body. Right? So there's so many different things. Most people wouldn't believe that this, which looks like it would hold down a cup or something on a table if it's hot, like a cup of tea. You can use this because it's got a rubber grip on it also for opening a case back, okay, and for screwing them back in. So there's so many different little things you can have depending on what they are. Wait until you bump into a watch that has no indents for a JAXA tool and it's got 12 sides. You need a tool or you are not getting it open. Okay, so the message here is almost every different type of watch back that's out there, there is a potential tool for. Some of them you can kind of fudge if it's close enough, or if you have the right tips for different tools, you can interchange them. But if you're going to be doing a lot of serious watch making or watch repair, it is not just the basics. It's a fine place to start with case opening tools that are good quality, maybe one or two for snap fit and for JAXA type, the waterproof watches. But before you know it, you're probably going to bump into something that requires something a little bit better. Okay, so the only other comment is Harbor Freight Salvage, not a good place to buy tools, not for watchmaking. Okay, there's certain things you can get there, but certain things you can't. The first time you buy a set of screwdrivers for $1.380 or get it free with another purchase, and you shred the tip of one of those little Phillips heads and the screw you were trying to open, you will be aware that was not a good idea. Okay, and then don't buy a little pin vise and drill from Harbor Freight. You need to get that screw out. Okay. A couple more variations on a theme. And again, I'm going to show you these things in just a moment. On the top left, you see a Rolex case back opener and the dies for those. And on the right, it looks to the casual eye. You can see a close-up of these two watches on the lower left. The one on the left is, it's a Datejust Oyster. And the one on the right is a Riviera chronograph from Baume & Mercier. So see how similar they look? They look really the same, but they're not. If you look very carefully, you'll see the indexes for the Rolex are twice as dense as those for the Baume & Mercier on the right. Okay, so you can't interchange them. It's just another example of why we have to be so careful about these. And by the way, the watch on the right is 5.5 millimeters total thickness. I know. Those are a real pain to work on. That's definite microscope work for sure. Okay, and you want to be careful because if you start gouging or shredding or scraping up those indexes, that watch back is not coming open again. Not even Sarah with her little dainty claws could do it, Mary. All right, a few more tools, and then I'm going to actually go live and show you some pictures, some actual real watches and tools here. These are common tools and useful to have. Now, what you're looking at here, for the most part, are tools we would use to work on bracelets. So I'm going to pretty much stop here. Lower left, you'll see a tool that's got a little fork in it. Those are used to grab watch bracelet pins and compress them so you can remove them from a watch strap. On the top right is actually a tool that's made for something completely different. That's a hairspring adjuster on the top, but it's a great thing for grabbing pins in watch case handles, in watch bracelet handles with spring pins of a certain type and holding them. So that tool gets a lot of use when I'm not working on hairsprings, which is infrequently. And then you'll see tools that push pins through. Those are kind of thing where you put them in the indent in a bracelet and then whack them with a hammer. Top left, you'll see more bracelet tools, an X-Acto knife, which is always important to have, and some screwdrivers. Okay, so let me stop sharing the screen for a minute. I'm going to go back to me, and I'm going to try and move this camera down so that you can see that table. So you are looking at 18 different watches here, including the pocket watch. These are high-end brands here, but they're great examples of them. And the reason why I wanted you to see this is simply because if we look at them up close, this is a Baume & Mercier, where you can see the coin edge a little bit. This is a Capeland S. And this is a Baume & Mercier, a different type, which has screws. Same brand, completely different watch backs. This is a typical chronograph. This is a Valjoux 7750. You can see the indents there. And this one is literally, I think it's only on finger tight. So I could literally use this green ball to open the case back. And I'm doing that. Okay, so this is a 600-meter watch. This is not a very high end. This is about $1,400, but I just put a brand new movement in it, this watch. And you can see there that once you have it loosened, you can literally turn them by hand, you can lift them off, and there we go. So that is a brand new 25 jewel Valjoux 7750 running to about 2 seconds a day at this point. Glenn, you showed us a Zodiac watch you found in an estate sale. Is that right? Last time we were on, didn't you have a diver watch?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Well, I found the Zodiac I was talking about. I knew I had it somewhere. This is a 36,000 vibration per second Zodiac, per minute rather, Zodiac. And it's got sapphires on the dial for hour markers. So I really, really like this one. I fell in love with it. But look at the case back on it. It is a typical waterproof JAXA tool case back.
Yeah.
That's something I picked
Jeff,
up.
Jeff, when you put your watches real close to the camera, they're out of focus.
Okay. Can you see that?
Much better.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you very much. Sorry, guys. Okay, so what tool would we use to open that? And the answer is we would use one of these guys. This is your JAXA case back opening tool. In fact, this is the tool to use. Or you would use one like this, which will do the same job. Again, very high quality. This is a Vigor. Or you might use my favorite Burrell. Okay, 2 pins, but look at how long the handle is on that. And the adjustment is so fine for this, and it's even got a watch clamp with it, that this is, like I said, this has become my de facto go-to tool for opening case backs simply because it works so well. Now, I showed you the Baume & Mercier. Here is a Baume & Mercier tool.
Oh, wow.
This is a Rolex tool. Yeah, hang on. It's almost a Rolex tool on the floor. I'm not going to hook that up at the moment, but I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but the index size on these dies is completely different. One is half the density of the other. This is Rolex and this is Baume & Mercier. So even though they visually look the same, they're completely different. You cannot use one for the other.
Okay. Wow.
So different types of tools and how to use them. And they get from the mundane to the esoteric. This is a Mito case back opening tool. can do crystals, movements, and case backs. Probably the first and possibly the last time you'll ever see this.
Wow.
Bulova has their own tools, but I showed you one of these and you'd think, oh, I'll never see a watch that uses this type of 12-sided opening. Well, I built this watch, and as a matter of fact, it has one, which is why I now own this set of wrenches. So look at the watch back on this.
Uh-huh.
How are you going to get that open if you really want to keep it closed tight and make it waterproof? You need the right wrench. This was a fun one to make. Took me a while to get the movement and the timing and everything right, but it was worth it. And so that gives you a good idea of the many, many different types. And they don't have to be expensive to, you know, or fancy or high end or something to have a different type of case back opening. This is my favorite Citizen Mickey Mouse watch. I got that my first trip to Disney World. And it's solar and it's just got a snap fitting. So you can never predict. Why do I say that? This is a Maurice LaCroix. This is a very expensive watch. Most of you guys can probably see that it's wearing its plastic still. It's because I'm like that. I won't take plastics off until they fall off on a watch, especially an expensive one, because they'll get scratched soon enough. If you can see, the indentations in that waterproof case back opening are very different. They're not standard indentations. You would need a Maurice LaCroix compatible tool to open this. And this is a very expensive watch. So you're not going to mess around with something like this when it needs adjusting. Okay, so that's a good idea of what I've got for information on case back tools and case back removing procedures. In a longer session, I would go into more detail and show you more. And if you want, I can slide the table out and slide the tools in. There we go. So these are all the different tools we were talking about. And gosh, if you have any questions, let me know, but I don't want to put you all to sleep or bore you to tears or whatever. Happy to answer questions if you've got them. And we can always talk about this more in the future. In the meanwhile, thank you for paying attention. And if you got any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Geoff.
That was very interesting.
It was quite good. I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
You said you were talking about you don't want to go to Harbor Freight. So where do you get your tools from? Who do you suggest for getting tools?
So I usually, believe it or not, there's two places, one of which is out of reach at the moment because I've gone to a lot of regionals and nationals where I buy great tools. For example, my Bergeon waterproof testing tool, which is a $1,200 tool for testing and certifying waterproof of watches, it died. And it died to a point where it was going to be more expensive to fix it than to, you know, to just get a new one. Well, I found the exact same model, practically brand new at a regional, $200. And I was like, yes. So
That's great.
I also shop places like Merit's, Time Savers. Esslinger is great. They are a little bit pricier, but they always have the right tools. McCaw and Company, Cousins in the UK if I can't find something in the US. And so there's a number of places that are out there, and you just learn who's got the right stuff and who doesn't, who's going to have, you know, the English stuff and who's going to have the French stuff, which is fine, and who's selling the Chinese and the Indian stuff, which I will not buy any longer. I have no problem with the Chinese or the Indians. However, my experience without exception is their quality control and the quality of the tools they produce. Sorry, I'm not drinking from that fountain ever again. So.
I see. Okay. And one more question for you on the JAXA tools. How do you tell a quality JAXA tool from just a so-so tool? Because I actually have one, and I'm thinking I might have gotten it from Time Savers. I'm not sure, but just curious if there's any tips you have for telling a good one from a bad one.
Yes, the most important tip is ask where it was made. If it's English, French, US, or Swiss, or pretty much anywhere in Europe, you got a good shot at it. If it's outside those regions, as in Asia, but not Japan, or Southeast Asia, or Pacific Rim, I'd stay away from it. This one, where it is, okay. So this one that I showed you is not very expensive, but I actually upgraded it. It was one of the earlier ones I got, and now it has sentimental value, so I kept it. But I replaced screws, bolts, tips, and adjusted the mechanism so I could turn it easily or not. And it's been great ever since. This one is a little bit more expensive. This is the big one. That's made by a French company. You probably can't see it. There it is. Okay, so if you can, it's good to put your hands on it and see the action and look at the quality, look at the fit and finish and everything, judge by the price where you can. And if not, check the manufacturing. If it's not, like I said, manufactured in like G8 or G10 or whatever, then I don't want to touch them anymore. Here's why. This thing has killed its share of watches, trust me. Or
yeah, you certainly see those for sale, that's for sure.
yeah, the $380 tools, you don't want to mess with them.
I see. And when it comes to the JAXA tool with the tips that you screw into there, like say for the square ones, they don't all, I've noticed it doesn't always line up perfectly with the indentations in the watch back. Is there some way you deal with that, or is it just?
There is. You find the closest fit and use it, or get the ones from the manufacturer. Now, the higher quality the tool you buy, the more chances are that you will have the tips you need included with it. Like this one came with 12 different sets of tips.
Right, but the squareness of the tips, I mean, matches with the squareness of the indentations.
Yeah, and there's as many different sizes as there are watches, and some are particular to particular manufacturers.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Jeff, the one thing that I wanted to mention is for those who weren't on our last chapter 42 meeting, that Zodiac Seacron, which is a 600-meter watch, has 14 sides on its case back. That's the reason I never attempted to open it, because I knew that would have been foolish on my part. So I've learned a great deal from your presentation here, and now I know what not to do, because I know that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, you can rent one of my wrenches if you want. No, I'm kidding.
No, well, you're just across the ridge from me. You're in Saudi and I'm in Hickston. I mean, I could throw a rock and probably hit you. But the other thing that I forgot to mention to the chapter 42 people that are with us today is that Zodiac over time, like so many other watch companies that went out of business because the Japanese came on the scene and ate the Swiss's lunch, and the Zodiac is a Swiss brand. Seiko, with their quartz movement, came along and ate everybody's lunch, including the Swiss. Mm-hmm. And so business fell off, and a lot of these watch companies went out of business. Zodiac reinvented itself and is now selling watches under the Fossil brand. I'll make mention of that. Oh. Zodiac was a brand that was completely foreign to me. I had never heard of that thing. I thought it was a cheap watch.
This is a $6,500 Grand Seiko wristwatch. This is a spring drive. If you can see it, look at the sweep of the second hand. Yeah. It almost looks like it's an electric watch. But it's not. This has got a mechanical movement in it.
Wow.
So when you talk about Seiko eating, everybody else's lunch, they're not favored over like some of the Rolex watches, but
I'll let you know.
Really good.
I'll let you know up front because I haven't been able to, I haven't contacted you by email. But you've got first right of refusal on my Zodiac Seacron, okay?
We'll talk.
Yeah.
This, by the way, guys, in case you want to see it, this was one of the, this is one of those watches that I will probably go to hell for. This is a solid gold 1941 Rolex chronometer. It is running to within 1 to 2 seconds a day. And I got this from our one-day show at chapter 139 when my buddy Ben Fulbright bought this big wooden jewelry chest at a yard sale. And he just wanted to get rid of it. And in there, I found this watch stuck with a bunch of the other fake Rolexes. Wow. And he's not a watch guy, and he didn't know what it was, and he didn't want to be bothered. So I bought the entire chest from him for $800. And it's one of those, it's one of those once in a lifetime kind of, is anybody passing out over there? Yeah. It's one of those once in a lifetime things that I did. And the watch looked miserable. It was black. It wasn't running. But I took a look at it and I had a pretty good sense what it was. He didn't even think it was real because it was in there with all these 80s cheap fake Rolexes, which were mostly in parts. And I went back to him. I said, Ben, I got to give you more money, you know, and I appealed to his wife. I said, Heidi, talk to him. And he's like, Geoff, you've been a friend. We've been doing business for years. You know, that's what I wanted for it. That's what you paid me. If you can turn that into a treasure, God bless. Anybody want his phone number? No.
That's analogous to my story, Geoff, because when I bought out this watchmaker, I had a hidden jewel in all the tools that I had already selected for my own collection. I'll sell the rest that, you know, the superfluous for my needs. But that one watch actually could equal or exceed what I paid for the estate.
Yeah, it happens. It just happens. I got lightheaded when I got that jewelry box home and I started seeing what was in there. I actually saw stars when I pulled the case back off that watch, expecting it was crap, and it was stamped solid gold, Montress Rolex SA, and I was like, "Oh, it's the big one, Elizabeth. Here I come." I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, and it took me a while to get it restored and running, and it's not really shiny right now. It spends most of its time in the case or in the safe, but whew, that was one of those ones you only get once in a lifetime.
In my humble opinion, that's Houston's loss and our gain, Jill.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What do you use for your watch timing?
I use an Ace timer right now. They work really, really well. They give me a very good, accurate visual. I don't really need printouts anymore. And I should probably upgrade at this point, but I use an Ace timer.
How is that name spelled?
ACE-timer, Ace timer.
Okay.
They're accurate as the day is done. And they've got multiple settings and they just work well for me. If you know, I think at some point I may upgrade again. I gave a very, very expensive one to my buddy Sean as a going away present when he left for Australia. But it does the job for me and it's accurate. So,
Geoff, how do you rank like the watches like an Omega, Rolex? How the Omegas, the older 40s and 50s, 60s Omegas versus the Rolex and things?
I have probably close to 30 Omegas in my collection right now.
Yes.
And many of them are from that vintage because they are, in my opinion, at that level of quality or better than Rolex.
They're what?
At that level of quality or better than Rolex.
The self-winding and all, right?
Most of them, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of Omega. You can tell if I've got a lot of them, it means I got a lot of respect for them.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, that last question. if a person needs a watch repaired, you know, most people just don't know. What's the best thing to do? To take them to a jewelry store? What do you suggest? John Q. Public doesn't know. What do you suggest and recommend to people?
Generally, what I recommend is ask the people you know who they would recommend
Right.
and see if you can get them to help. If you can, that is great. That's really something that works. Word of mouth is something I still believe in, personal recommendations from people. If not, I would say start asking around and find a jeweler that is respectable and a watchmaker that you can trust. One of the ways to do that is ask about the watchmaker's training, certifications, and qualifications, and don't be shy about it. If it's an important watch to you, you don't want someone messing it up.
Thank you.
Okay? So that's a really important thing to do. Ask them what they know, how many years experience, what are their guarantees, what happens if they break something, and what is their training and certification. If you get something back like, well, our technicians have been out of school for 3 years now, don't go there. As compared to somebody who's been trained in, you know, Swiss watchmaking or Rolex Wu-Step, has certifications or ACI qualifications as a master watchmaker, and they've been doing this for 5 or 10 years or more.
Well, let me thank you for this is one of the best programs we've had. Good program, and as a clock collector and knows a little about watches, you did a great job and very interesting. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I was going to say, I hate to admit it, I had a watchmaker I used for almost 20 years, but here in November, he had a heart attack and passed away.
Yeah.
So while I had someone who worked on my high-end watches, I don't have that opportunity anymore. But anyway.
Not close by anyway, but when I was asking some about how to restore my vintage Zodiac Seacron that I mentioned earlier, I contacted one of my favorite 2 people in the world, who is Ed Uberall.
Yeah.
Or the dynamic duo, Ed Uberall and Kent Singer. And Uberall referred me to Jeff Hess down in Florida.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's great.
Jeff Hess he bought the rights to Ball Watch Company. I mean, not the same Ball watch that we know, because I collect pocket watches, but he referred me to Jeff Hess. He said he has plenty of people down there that are well experienced, and that it's not going to be cheap, but it can be done.
Yep, exactly. And Jeff Hess is that good.
Well, let me
pretty much retired at this point.
Let me echo Glenn's comment that Dallas's loss is also our gain. So
Houston.
Houston, I'm sorry.
139, the San Jacinto chapter.
Other watch supply places, Jules Burrell, Rio Grande, Casker.
Yep.
If you need to find jewels for replacement in watches, they can come up with them. And I certainly like Cousins in the UK.
Yep, good recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
This is Jim Colson. I've got a couple more questions.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Jeff, I've got 2 Omegas that belong to my dad, and I treasure them, of course. He had a small plane, and we flew all over the country, and he used this Omega Seamaster, which has the main dial and 3 subsidiary dials, and it's a stopwatch. Can you give me any information about that?
Yeah, if you send me some photos, including the movement and the numbers on the back of the movement, if it's open, yes, I can.
Okay, and I've got another one, same story, I'm sure. It's a Turler. It's an automatic, Turler, Turler. And I'll just send both of them, pictures of both of them.
Yeah, that was a respected name for quite a while. So yeah, definitely send it over. I'll see what I can find for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Jeff, the last question. Have you ever heard of a CYMA Crima Swiss watch? Have you ever heard of that brand?
SEMA, yes, I certainly have. Yep.
Pronounce that again. How do you pronounce that?
SEMA.
SEMA. Are they pretty good watches or?
Yes, they are. They're quite good. Well, at least the older vintage ones are really, really good. The biggest problem these days is a lot of these watches brands are getting bought up by one of the monopoly houses like, LVMH or Richelieu or Swatch Group. They maintain a lot of the company ethos, their approach to watchmaking and their style cues and things like that, but they are subject to the parent organization. So sometimes they lose a lot of what they used to be in the translation. Elgin is a perfect example of that. Of course, we know them for the millions of pocket watches they made. But in the 60s, I think it was, when they got sold to a Swiss company, everything changed completely. So they've still got the Elgin name, but if you ask me about a current version Elgin compared to one that's 100 years old, very, very different story.
What I find is hard to find like a crystal. If something's broken, they're so different. It's hard to find replacements. Yeah.
It can be. It
Like
can be,
SEMA.
but there's a lot of watch companies that still supply crystals. And if you're diligent enough and you can get the measurements on it, you can find them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, once again, any other questions? Thank you, Jeff. And I look forward to when we start meeting face to face again, and I'm sure Mary will be happy about this, that we can get some more presentations because we lack watch participants. And you can see from just the questions here from this group, there's an interest in watches, but it's hard to get the watch guys to make any presentations. Yes, Mary.
Well, Jeff has a second program I'm going to take him up on. I'm thinking probably better in person, how to discern between fake and luxury watches. And he has samples to show us. So I'm thinking that might be a good one to do in person, because as you can see, our video is good, but you can't always discern the fine details. So
yeah. That one for sure in person, Mary.
Jeff has volunteers, so you will see him speaking again, hopefully in person and hopefully very soon.
Great.
Let me make one statement here. And this is back to Geoff Parker. Normally, when we travel, we live in Chattanooga. Geoff Parker lives over the hill from us in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, which is literally a ridge away from Soddy Daisy. But in the recent past, when we came down, it was Sherry and I and Jim Colson and sometimes Renee. But we travel down together and we share the rides. So when we resume in June, Jeff, we would like to invite you to ride along with us, because that would provide for 2 hours worth of conversation on the trip down and on the way back.
Thank you very much. That's a very kind invitation. I may just take you up on that.
It doesn't have to be
if I ride with you, I won't be able to spend as much and fill up the car as Phil.
Well, we've got plenty of room. We've got a 7-passenger van, so.
Oh, that works.
If anything,
Very little space behind the back seat, right?
I don't think you'll be sharing the back seat.
My best friend lives in Soddy Daisy, so I'm familiar with that area, that side of the mountain.
Wow, very cool, Dan.
I meant to mention this earlier, and when Steve Hassmith was still on, he's dropped off. But when I was there, I'm gonna put this here. This is a picture of an E. Howard clock that Bernie and Byron rebuilt. In 2009, and I've got the original newspaper article with their picture. I'm going to bring it to the face-to-face meeting so people can see it. But and I apologize for failing to mention it earlier. So anyway, I've got that. Any other business? Any questions?
Good meeting.
Well, as always, I appreciate all of you dialing in. I certainly appreciate Bob and Mary and Charles for their officership and the good work that they do. And Chris, I look forward to stopping by and picking you up to go to the Tuesday night group next time.
All right.
You guys take
I'll
care.
be waiting.
All right. You guys take care, and I'll see your lovely faces next month.
All right.
And,
Take
and
care,
just,
everybody. Thank you.
just a reminder, we're not meeting on Easter Sunday, so it'll be the second Sunday of April.
Right. It'll be in the newsletter, right, Bob?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Everybody, bye.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Jim.